Our first section we're going to talk about is on equipment. I'm happy to welcome Aidan Walters. Not only is he a CSPA Rigger B, he's FAA Master Rigger, I think is what it's called. He is a full-time tandem instructor at our drop zone. But yeah, he's been in the industry for a very, very long time. Can help people out when they're wanting to get new gear and those kind of things. So I now need to just find Aidan in my list of people, and then I will get you to unmute Aidan. And I might actually see if it's faster for Gord to find him. No worries. We've got like a whole bunch of things going on. So Aidan, there you are. And I'm going to switch the floor over to you, Aidan. I'm going to stop sharing my screen as well.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm not too happy that Allison said that it's been a very, very long time that I've been in sport. She said a very long time. I'm happy everyone could join us. On equipment, it's one of those things that we can talk about a little bit, but short of getting together with a bunch of parachutes and really looking at things and talking about it, we can't really cover really small details. But a lot of the general things can be covered. One of the things I want to stress is that there is a lot of information in the CSPA PIMS or the USPA's SIMS, all kinds of things. Generally, the information you get from national organizations is likely to be better than what you would find just casually online from random people. There is lots of other good information out there, but the national organizations, by the time they put it in print, have really made sure that it is the correct information. I don't want to just cover things directly as the PIMS. I want to sort of cover some practical thoughts rather than just stay with basically reading from something. In springtime, we have to remember that, well, we do all remember that we're uncurrent or less current. But that sometimes we think that just applies to the skydive, but it also applies to our equipment. We're going to go over equipment checks and stuff later, but as far as keeping the awareness that what we want to do on our equipment is slow down a little bit rather than trying to do things at the pace we did in the fall or towards the end of our seasons. First area I want to talk about is packing. In CSPA, a lot of people may remember the acronym PINT. PINT stands for Packing, Inspection, Names, and Tangles. Packing itself in the spring, again, if everyone slows down a little bit when they're doing it initially, take a few more moments to think about things rather than rushing through it, we're way less likely to pack ourselves to malfunction. The details of that or practice with people, you can always do, coaches, instructors, they're all maybe in a rush, but generally there'll always be somebody that has the time and is willing to go over a pack job with you if that's what you need. And it doesn't matter what your experience level is. Sometimes we've forgotten something and having somebody there helps a little bit. I'm going to skip over the inspection for a moment. The names of the item, things in PINT. It's nice to know those things just because communication is better, but it's not critical. And understanding how to remove tangles a little bit, again, is just practice more than anything. The biggest thing is identifying them, and that's done with line checks. The inspection is probably the area that is the biggest concern and something that not only do we not quite as good at in the spring, but also a lot of people aren't doing a lot of on a general basis. In inspecting during a pack job, the big thing that you want to do is inspect all of the attachment points. So you could start up from the gear, going up, seeing packing, generally thinking of the main, being aware of the 3 rings, above them, the next attachment points, the line attachment points. As you go up the lines, most people don't inspect the upper line attachment points, but as you continue going up, things like the bridle attachment points, the pilot chutes, the attachments on the pilot chutes, the attachment to the bag, those are the wear points and the points that in a perfect world, somebody looks at regularly, but we all know it's not a perfect world. And on the main, it is generally the jumpers solely the jumper's responsibility to check their main parachute. If you hire packers regularly, they're always trying to pack in a hurry, which means they may or may not catch something. So if you're packing for yourself, just an extra few seconds to look at those components as you're going by them. And there's all things that you look at in a pack job anyway, as long as you remember to look rather than just blaze by them. Maintenance is sort of the other area that we want to be thinking about. We all know the regular maintenance as far as 180-day repacks. And a lot of people aren't that aware of what happens on that. They think the reserve is being repacked. That is one of the components that's happening there. Your rigger in the process is inspecting the harness, the main and reserve container, all the attachment points, the hardware, things like that. All of those things are the responsibility of the rigger at that point. But then it leaves the rigger and it instantly, you can snag it on a fence. I've had containers come into me with harnesses half cut through, and the jumper was not aware of it. So things that you want to be looking at your own gear. The maintenance on the 180-day cycle is good, but it's really important to remember that you need to be aware of those things yourself. Look at your gear yourself, and that ties into the main inspection is largely your responsibility, so you want to be taking a good look at that. There's just a few other topics. Main parachute checks I talked about. Traveling with gear, I've heard so many stories of people, their reserve was open, they weren't allowed to bring it on the airplane. And just about every time that happens, I find that the person was really pushy with the inspection people at the airport. They have a job to do, and anything that's a concern to them, they're going to stop. The reality is, and they don't always know this, that parachutes, of course, are allowed on airplanes. It's the only place they have a use. What we want to do with them is remember that if we're polite to them, they're more likely to listen to us. You don't want to argue with them. If they want to open your parachute or say no, if you ask to see their manager, solution is almost always taken care of right away because the manager is more likely to know the rules. But they do have the right to open any bag going on an airplane, which includes a parachute. So, of course, if they're wanting to open your parachute, you can ask to, watch them do it. I think that is a requirement, which is why it's always done in front of you with your regular bag, but it also be in front of you with your parachute. Do warn them that the pilot chute pops out in their face. They're going to do it. Just like anyone else, they don't like being embarrassed. So if it scares them and they're embarrassed, they're more likely to be a little bit problematic. I have traveled a huge amount with parachutes, never once had an issue. They've asked what it is, they've questioned things, they've questioned whether it's allowed on an airplane. But generally that's all taken care of within their own organization, just with a little bit of courtesy. The other thing that can help it with travel is the part that they're most concerned about is your automatic activation device. Automatic activation devices flag everything as far as their system goes. A bunch of wires going between multiple boxes. In reality, and if we stop and think about this, we know that it is a altitude activated explosive device. The fact that the explosion is very, very tiny inside of a steel sort of stainless steel solid thing that the explosion doesn't get out of, it just drives a nice cutter across the closing loop. If you ever use that description at the airport, they're probably not going to let it on. But there are, from the manufacturers of the ADs, sort of X-ray cards showing what it is. It lists things like the FAA permission to go on the airplane. Of course, that's not Canada or any other country other than the FAA. But the information on there generally will get you through the airport fairly easily. Of course, you have to remember to carry the card. If you don't have one, most drop zones have extra ones laying around because they just, Gordon Allison have, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 AEDs, which means over the years they've got 15, 16, 17 of those cards showing up, and they don't really know what to do with that many of them. So if you don't have one, if you ask around, you can find one. And then the other area that I just want to talk about is a little bit on the packing area. We're always packing together. There's a packing area has room for lots of people. I see people coming up and they're standing around looking, how do I get on the packing area? Someone's standing there with a parachute, just say, hey, just hop on in. It's usually newer people that are a little bit nervous of just stepping in. So just encourage them to step on in. Remember, we only take about 3 feet to pack. And if 20 people are packing that close to each other at the same moment, but we all know half of us drop the parachute, walk away for 15 minutes, come back. So you kind of have to work on top of each other a little bit. And then in that same area, you want to be a little bit aware of what you leave laying around. I've come to packing areas that I'm putting my parachute down and I'm weaving it through coffees and drinks and food and people's gear bags and everything else. It's a packing area for packing. Try to keep it a little bit clean. Remove garbage and make it available for the next person. And that's all I have for you today, unless Allison says, hey, will you cover something else?
No, that's great, Aiden.